Good morning, everyone. Yeah, I'd love to hear that spirited kind of response. And I trust you can see me here next to these banners. I kind of feel like I'm bookended in. But a really big good morning and welcome to everyone. I'd like to thank you for joining us today. As you know, it's a very special day here at NMC. And if I don't know you, I'm Nick Nisley, and I have the privilege of serving as the president of Northwestern Michigan College. And on behalf of the college, I want to extend a very warm welcome to you. As you obviously know, 2026 is a very special year for NMC. It's our 75th anniversary, and I know you know that because you're here. Since 1951, Northwestern Michigan College has been more than just a community college. We're proud to be the community's college, and I think that's why you're here, because you're part owner of this amazing institution. I would say that the community counts on NMC as an anchor. We're actually a community cornerstone, and we're also the community's first choice in higher education. But we're also on the leading edge. We're recognized for our distinguished programs throughout the state and even the nation. Programs like our Great Lakes Maritime Academy, our aviation program, our Great Lakes Culinary Institute, our nursing program, the Great Lakes Water Studies Institute, and so many more. By innovating in this way, we plan to thrive for another 75 years. But today is all about history. So with that, I'm going to engage you for a moment here. We're going to start with your history. And I'm going to ask you, when I ask a few questions here, to raise your hand if this question is true for you. And please keep your hand raised. There's only going to be about 5 or 6 questions. And at the end, we'll kind of look around and go, oh my goodness, or at least that's what I hope. So we'll take a try at this. Raise your hand if you're an NMC alumnus. Wow. And I know you guys have the harder task. Keep those hands up. This is only going to be a couple minutes here. But take a look around. All of these NMC alums. Keep those hands up. Also, if you're an NMC retiree, raise your hand. I've seen more go up, even in the back there. Great. Keep those hands up still, even the first ones. If you're a college volunteer, raise your hand. Oh my gosh, look, more going up. Double hands. Keep those hands up, just 2 more to go here. If you're a current faculty or staff member, raise your hand. Oh my goodness. And the last one, if you're a parent or other family member of an NMC student, raise your hand. Look at that. Oh my goodness. Take a look around. Take a look around. Just about everyone's represented. You can put them down now. I trained you and keep your hands up, right? You were going to just keep them up no matter what. Great to see when we look around those incredible connections that we have. And I think what we saw there is that a significant portion of the audience has a personal history with the college. In other words, our individual stories add up to a collective story. And that collective story, I think, demonstrates the impact that NMC has had and will continue to have on our region. But now, I'd like to do something very special, and we're going to take an opportunity to show you that impact. There's a short video that was created almost exclusively internally, and I think you're going to be really proud seeing how our faculty and staff pulled together with volunteers from the community to create this wonderful video that's debuting today. And it'll also give us some context for what's up next, our panel discussion that's going to follow. So with that, I'll say I'm proud to present the premiere of Lasting Legacy, Bold Tomorrow, NMC at 75. Let's watch.
I think what you'll see in that video, more than the beautiful combination of so many talents, is the real love that people put into that, and I think it just speaks to NMC and what we do. So the next part of this history showcase is the panel discussion. Good morning. My name is Stephen Siciliano, and I serve as Vice President for Educational Services. It is my pleasure to welcome our moderator, Crystal Frost Anderson. Crystal is a proud NMC alumna and is honored to be recognized among the college's 75 outstanding alumni. She has enjoyed a long career in media as a journalist, producer, radio host, and podcaster, and today serves as Regional Director of OS Reentry with Networks Northwest. Crystal lives in Traverse City with her husband Jordan and their two lovable but admittedly difficult dogs, Jojo Mario and Milo Angelo. Please join me in welcoming Crystal Frost Anderson.
Thank you so much. It is such an honor to be here today. I had to pull out some logo wear, and I realized this is not a logo, so. But hey, I'm representing. I am so excited to introduce our panelists today, and we are going to start by introducing Chris Bott, who is an alumni of the NMC class of 1983 and served as a member of the Board of Trustees from 2015 to 25. Chris, you want to join me on the stage? Up next, Timothy J. Nelson, Tim, served as a West Hall and campus apartment supervisor from 1975 to 1977, then as the chief financial officer in 2000 to 2001 before becoming NMC's 10th president from 2001 to 2019. Tim, come on up. We have Pat Salathiel, who served as our Director of Student Health Services from 1979 to 2001. Pat, come on up. And finally, Roberta Teehan, serving as a business faculty member and division director, and later as the Dean for Occupational Studies from 1975 to 2001. Come on up. What a great panel. Let's give another round of applause. So much knowledge, so much history. And we're going to start with a question that I'd like all of you to answer. And why don't we start with you, Roberta? What changes did you see in your own experience from the time you started to the time that you retired?
That's a long time. And actually, I did start full-time in 1975, but I actually began teaching here in 1970 as an adjunct. So I'd seen a lot of changes, and I had to write down what a lot of them were. And I categorized them into three areas. The first is technology, the second is infrastructure buildings, and the third, demographics. So I'll start quickly with the technology part. My first job was teaching the computer courses. Now remember what those looked like in 1968. We were at the Old Tech Center. That is a very different building than what you see today. And the computer filled a room. And we programmed it with punch cards, decks of them. And I did bring a few pictures for those of you that might be interested after. It was actually featured in 1970 on the front page of the Record Eagle, a picture of us processing grades for our Traverse City High School colleagues, and some of you know Larry Nykirk. He happened to be the instructor that was there, and we were running stacks of cards. So the technology obviously changed dramatically. The capabilities of that NCR computer and later the accounting machine. On the front page of the Record Eagle, a picture of us processing grades for our Traverse City High School colleagues, and some of you know Larry Nykirk. He happened to be the instructor that was there, and we were running stacks of cards. So the technology obviously changed dramatically. The capabilities of that NCR computer and later the accounting machine is now much less than what we have on our phones. Second were buildings. Almost all the buildings that are new since I began here. The tech center was an old Morgan McCool cherry plant that has since been destroyed, and the Haggerty Center is now there. The museum was not here. The Beckett building was not here. The MTech was not here. The aviation facility, which was much smaller, and it goes on and on. So there are lots and lots of changes in the infrastructure. And then finally, the demographics. When I started, I was one of maybe 3 or 4 women faculty on the entire campus. And I was sharing in the lobby that there was a group called the Faculty Wives Club. But we few women faculty did join the Faculty Wives Club and got to know lots of wonderful people. But those days, there were very, very few women faculty. So those are some of the highlights.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Pat, what about you? What changes have you seen in your own experience from the time you started to the time you retired?
Oh, it is on. Okay. In '79, I was home taking care of 2 kids, and happy life. I was growing organic vegetables, selling them, and I got a call from Bob Warner, who was then, I think, admissions person, and he said, there's an opening at the college for a health service nurse. And I thought, well, the kids are 12 and 10, I probably should think about going back to work. So I applied for the job and got it, and everything was fine for the first year. And the second year, all hell broke loose. The HIV/AIDS crisis was upon us. Nobody knew what to do about it. It was nobody knew how it was transmitted. And I remember Dr. Martin, who's an infectious disease specialist in town, said, I was flying by the seat of my pants. He says, I don't know what to do. And he said he'd get up at 4 in the morning just to see what the CDC was saying, what new information there was out there. Well, the college decided that the health service should be looking into this. And so I, of course, went to the CDC, to Dave Martin, to American College Health Association that was putting out information. But what I did know is that we needed to start educating the kids. We needed to do something to let them know how serious this was. If you got this disease, you could be dead in 2 to 8 months. I mean, it was, and you could carry the disease for a long time and transmit it. So anyway, we started programming, and some of the things that we did, first of all, we made the Tom Judd video, and that was Tom Judd was a remarkable young man who was willing to share his story. He contracted AIDS in New York City when he was 19, but didn't have symptoms until much, much later. But he was so articulate that I decided that we should start videotaping him. And we did, and we've got great video. And then I thought, well, maybe Rich Brower would be interested in this. And so I got a hold of Rich, and he said yes, and he came to actually his home and also to the hospital when Tom was in the hospital, and we filmed him. Actually, he came also to the home 4 days before Tom died. So it's a pretty powerful video, and we're now actually digitalizing it. So, but the student programming, we made a quilt, a great sex-tag-toe quilt, which the students used. And we had great sexpectations come from Western. Chris Zimmer, the producer of Great Sexpectations, is in the audience, so happy to see her. We brought a bed from the Health Occupations Department, put it in the cafeteria, and invited Sylvia Hacker, who was a human sexuality teacher at U of M, and she came up and demonstrated and showed the students how to practice safer sex. It was crazy. We also had Hollywood Squares and just several different programs. In fact, I went from growing vegetables for our salads to growing vegetables to teach students how to put a condom on. So I doubled my cucumber load. We also had to deal with the bloodborne pathogen policy. All of a sudden, we needed to inform faculty and staff of what to do and how to handle blood, and that was interesting. But through it all, I had great support from administration. There were some colleges that wouldn't deal with condoms. There was actually, I found notes from the condom committee that student government came up with this committee, and they determined where the condom machines would go, and our faculty was totally supportive. President Runkle, one time, he was a little nervous about this, and he said, you can give the students condoms, but they have to come and talk to you first. Well, that went over really well. And so we ditched that. But that was kind of my whole time here was dealing with that, and it was quite remarkable.
Wow. Thank you so much for that. Tim, what about you? In your time here, what did you see in your own experience from the time that you started to the time that you retired? And I know you've had a couple of iterations of jobs, starting West Hall and the apartments as a supervisor. Talk a little about that.
So when I came here in 1975, and I came here because I followed my wife Nancy. And those of you who know her, she sends her best. She was unable to be here today. This felt like a small public liberal arts school with an emphasis with some trade programs. It was very focused on this campus, although we had what now is the Great Lakes campus. But the Great Lakes campus at that time was really a remnant of what had been 27 different companies operating on that piece of property. And so people were crammed into spaces. The Maritime Academy was a primary program. Auto Tech was down there. At one point, the business offices moved into the freezer building. Okay, and those of you who remember the freezer building, when we took that down and built the campus, there were people who acted like they didn't know the bay was behind there because they couldn't see through that. And that was part of the reason to design the Great Lakes campus that way, is so you could look through and actually see the water. In terms of West Hall and East Hall and the apartments, we were, I think, the first community college to have housing. And Shirley Okerstrom, I can remember her telling the story, is that was just part of the perspective of the board in terms of what does it mean for a college to be a college. Now, I've always looked through a lens that we have three major roles. One is we're a social development agency, we're a economic development agency, and we're a talent development agency. And so as I looked at the changes that occurred, and when we left here in 1978, we watched what was going on at the campus. In fact, when I came back in 2000, there were a whole lot of people still here, and I kind of said, this is why you have to be nice to everybody. You never know what they're going to come back as. But the notion that we would have housing, okay, at a community college, which most people thought of, well, that's a commuting place, created another sense of community, okay, a local community for our students, for our faculty, for our staff. And you talk to people with the experiences they had during that time, and that's kind of how they started their life journey. I'm a believer that our life is learning. It's all about learning. And during my 19 years as president, my catchphrase was keeping learning at the center, because that's what we do. I don't care if it's in the classroom, didn't care if it was in an office, but there ought to be something that people learn by having that interaction with other people. Now, when I came back as CFO, I was very fortunate. The college had just passed a millage, $34 million bond, that the community said, we want to invest and give you the resources you need to renovate your facilities, to make some expansions, to do things that we weren't able to do as a college prior to that. And it's just another lesson that we build the future based on the shoulders and the work of the people who preceded us. And I was thankful for that. We intentionally said we need to kind of up our game, become more professional in certain areas, not minimizing anything that we had done, but changing the way we budgeted, changing the way we thought about what our role was within the community. We were always a community leader, but what could we be next? And so we embarked on a journey that helped us to create programs for people that people would say, well, why are you doing that as a community college? Changing our culinary program that originally started in the Park Place Hotel, where our students and our faculty were the professional staff operating that hotel when Rotary Charities took it over. Moving that from the Olson Center to what is a beautiful facility on West Bay, and labeling it as a teaching kitchen, a teaching restaurant, because that's the purpose. Not as a competitive restaurant, but one where students were learning. We're fortunate that John Tanner, who was the superintendent of the Maritime Academy at that point, secured the state of Michigan for us. Prior to that, all of the sea time that our students had to be on commercial vessels, which as the Great Lakes fleet declined, became harder and harder and harder. And without that vessel, we probably would not have been able to put in place the business plan that moved that program into the future. The Water Studies Institute came about through conversations that said, you know, we're sitting on 20% of the world's surface fresh water. And the Maritime Academy is a great program, but it's not enough. We have a bigger responsibility. What's that going to be? So we started the Great Lakes Water Studies Institute, and as the video showed, it's grown and continues to grow with the investment of the new facility that's being built. Aviation was modified to focus on student completion of programs, change our equipment view. We changed every building on this campus, established the Aero Park facilities beyond MTech, bought a building. We fortunately had the wherewithal to do that, moved our Autotech program there, established the Aero Park labs for our other technical type programs, and made big investments here on this campus that you see. But I think the most important thing is that we proved that we can be agile. We proved that we could continue to be responsive. We learned how to take risks, and education is not known for wanting to take risks. Some things worked, some things didn't work. The most important thing is, if it didn't work, what did we learn from it? And we had supportive boards all the way through. The college would not be where it is without those boards. And we had a supportive community in terms of raising funds, participating through volunteering, giving us access for students into their companies, and really helping our students understand that this is a starting place. It can be your ending place if you want. We made a commitment to international education. Okay, we're ranked nationally. I don't know what it is now. Nick was, I think, 11th or 10th at one point for international experiences for community college students. Again, isn't that something four-year schools do? We have partnerships teaching. We have graduates in China. We have partnerships with people in Great Britain, all connected to our academic programming that create experiences for people from our region. So I have 20 years I could go through. I'll stop there, except Pat. I did get phone calls for people saying, "Why are you handing out condoms?" And that was still in 2001.
Thank you so much. I mean, just a little busy there in your 20 years. Love it. How about you, Chris? What changes did you see in your own experience from the time you started to the time you retired?
Well, considering that I started in the summer of 1981, and I have the rare privilege to tell you that my very first college instructor is Dr. Tehan. When I took an introduction to computer classes, when you think about that, in 1981, you actually had to take a class to introduce you to a newer evolving technology. And I shaped that to where we are today, where our students have the options to do online class, in-person classes. They have more options than we had 45 years ago. Anything that NMC has done, even over what I call my 45 years of involvement, which was going to school, going away, coming back, getting on the advisory committee for the business discipline, having my children start at NMC in the mid-2000s, joining the board in 2015. Everything that has been done at NMC has been thoughtful and strategic. You don't get to where we are today by just haphazardly saying, oh, we're going to try stuff. Having been involved in the board for 10 years and the strategic planning and the policy committees, we've been successful because we have good systems and processes in place. No single board member can take it off the rails. Nobody can advocate something that isn't at least looked at, vetted, determined what the resources are, and you move forward. So the change I've seen over time is surprising, that when something happens and somebody outside may say, wow, NMC is doing something great and innovative, chances are it was well thought through. And I remember going to our national conferences and we'd talk about colleges, oh, hey, we're thinking of doing this. And I'm like, we're already doing it. Or we've already tried it and determined that it's not the right fit for us, but it may be a good fit for you. So again, I look at the change, starting off as a student and then coming back as a business owner, being involved in the college process, what they call the governance. Everything has been, I think, like I said, very thoughtful and very strategic. And we are where we are today because of great foundations that were laid. I used to say that between when Tim was president and working with Nick, that we had very good systems in place that the administrative office made the board look good. Because when we came to a board meeting, we were organized, we had our materials, we knew what issues were on the table, and I think Tim went a long way to training me as a new board member on what I should do as a board member. And when I became the chair of the board, sitting from the outside looking at the college, until you sit on the board, you have no clue of how dynamic this, I call it the educational enterprise is. It's very sophisticated. We do things at this college and some universities don't do. When you look at aviation and our nursing and our ability to offer bachelor's degrees, we have a world-class museum, things that you would not find. But that's also because the community has valued NMC. They've helped us fund it through millages and just with their support. So I think all the change that's happened, it hasn't happened blindly. It's happened for reasons that were well thought through.
Well said. As far as getting back to the next question, Roberta, we're going to go back down to you. Are there any activities or historical events during your time at NMC that are particularly memorable, and could you speak about those?
I can, but actually Tim's comment about the international, I'd even forgotten as I was reflecting on the many really positive experiences. I'd forgotten about the exchange programs that we had with Germany and Japan at the time when I was involved. So lots of good things, but the one I'll feature is probably the one that gained the most publicity internationally, and it was a combination of two really aspects of important work. I'll start with the creation of the Center for Business and Industry, which has gone through different names, but that was created under the leadership of President George Miller at the time. And it was a time when many of us were beginning to recognize that the traditional curriculum wasn't necessarily meeting the needs of all prospective students, and that we needed some short courses, we needed some really focused training, and that initiative came about from our Friday afternoon Tech Center West meetings. That was code for, we met at the Holiday Inn on Friday afternoon at 4 o'clock. And the directors of Extended Learning then, Barbara Rail, Diane Keelan, Director of Health Occupations, Roger Hardwick, Director of the Technical Programs. And the four of us, along with Karen Anderson, would meet, and that idea emerged from those Friday afternoon social gatherings, probably with a little wine. And one of the many things that we did, and there were many over the years, was to get involved with the cherry industry. And for you who are locals, you know that that's an important industry agriculturally for this region. And they have often struggled with marketing, and they've struggled with low prices and lots of other stories. And we were able to bring some SBA funding to help them develop marketing strategies. And of course, they were pretty grateful for that. We ran a lot of workshops and seminars and so on. So we had built friends through the Center for Business and Industry with the agricultural industry. And one day, I got a call from a man that probably is known to many of you because he is very active with the Cherry Festival. Bob Underwood called, and he said, "We have an idea." And their idea was, they had now become pretty conversant with marketing and image. We should build the world's largest cherry pie. Of course, none of us knew how to build a cherry pie, even in the kitchen, let alone at the open space. And their idea was to have it be done at the time of the Governor's Conference. National Governor's Conference was going to be held at the resort. And they thought that would be a great opportunity because there would be not only national, but also international media in town. And that there was. So at the time, the three of us who were principals in the Center for Business and Industry immediately went to Chef Pierre to see how they could help us build a cherry pie. The engineers were excited about this. They thought this would be a lot of fun. The public relations people were pretty skeptical about this idea. And so there were a few politics along the way. But fast forward, and the engineers won. We had a pie builder, and it really just blossomed from there. We literally had hundreds of volunteers. We had businesses in the community offering to do all kinds of things. CBI was a self-supporting unit at the time. We were not being paid to do this. It was a community gesture on behalf of the college, and most of the college got involved. The business division, Marilyn and Marianne, and a number of others who are known to you, sold refreshments at the event to make money. The Maritime Academy were the official weighers. It did become a Guinness Book of World Records. You can still see the pie pan that was built by Jacqueline Steele over by the former University Center location. As a refresher, the pie weighed 18,000 pounds, had 7,500 pounds of sugar, etc. And one of the biggest problems was turning people away because everyone wanted to volunteer. And including a musical group. So we created Nancy Jacobs, a public school teacher, and a couple of folks from Interlochen, whose names I don't recall, musicians, and Betty Carden, who was a member of the faculty here, and very creative, they rewrote many popular songs with cherry themes. And then they recruited 40 little kids to sing at the open space all day while the pie was being baked. And by the way, the pie was baked in an oven that got built overnight by a Midland-based company that wanted to be involved. And we were turning away the ice cream vendors and the whipping cream vendors and the lemonade makers. Literally thousands of people came out to see this event, and it was pretty exciting. And the question that you didn't add was, what was special about this? What was special was the entire college stepped up. Practically everyone was involved in that effort. And the whole community stepped up. And I did bring today, and I won't bring it out, but I have the Pie Team shirts, and I have a copy of the volunteer, a version of the volunteer shirt, and the cherry pie apron, which is actually quite well used now. And those became coveted items, and we were getting calls for weeks after asking where they could get these t-shirts or aprons. So it was an amazing community event, and we did in fact get international publicity. Chef Pierre at the time, now a Sara Lee owned entity, had a big scrapbook of stories and pictures from around the world. And the only thing I want to clarify is I thought, well, I wonder what ChatGPT would have to say about the event. And they did get most of it right, but the one thing they got wrong was it was not connected with the Cherry Festival. It was actually later in July. It had nothing to do with the Cherry Festival. It had everything to do with our agricultural community's recognition of an opportunity and the recognition that the people who could make it happen, and this is exactly what they said, who can make this happen? The people at NMC can make this happen, and we did.
That is amazing. I was there that day. I was a little kid, and I remember the pie being really delicious too, so just so you know.
I actually, for a long time, had, we had to, rather than cut pieces of the pie, they came out on an assembly line that Chef Pierre engineers also built overnight. Literally, everything had to go up overnight because of city rules. Mm-hmm. And they all got pumped into little cartons and then came off the assembly line, and thousands and thousands of them did, and most of them were gone, but we did have about a dozen in our freezer for the next year.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. Pat, how about you? Are there any activities or involvements or historical events during your time at NMC that are particularly memorable, and why are those memorable?
I think the other thing that was going on at the same time as the HIV/AIDS crisis was there was a big boom in wellness activities. In corporations, everybody, Johnson & Johnson had their big wellness program. And we thought, well, we should probably do something about wellness on the campus. And I have to actually read some of these because I can't remember them all. We had the NMC Streetwalkers. We had Wind Your Way to the Windy City. Stress Busters. We had mini massages. Follow the Fitness Pass to Mackinac Island. And my favorite, Millennial Meltdown, 2,000 Ways to Leave Your Blubber. I mean, I had a very creative secretary, and we just had, and we had a wellness committee was formed, and we just had fun with it. It was so, there were so many groups involved. It was administration, it was faculty, it was janitors. They were all out walking at noon in one of these programs because they could win good prizes. You could win a 2-night stay in Chicago. You could win a trip to Mackinac Island. So that's what we were doing back then. 2001, a Waste Odyssey, Waste, W-A-I-S-T. And the big frosting on the cake, I think, is that in 2000, the Governor's Council and Michigan Fitness Foundation awarded us the Healthy Workplace Award. And it was exciting. Bob Buttleman from the Aviation Department flew us down to Lansing to receive this award, and I think the plaque is still in the archives someplace. But that was what was going on then. And also I wanted to mention the White Pine Press. It was interesting. It was back in, I don't know, 89. And the top page says, "The board accepts museum plans, considers basement addition," and a picture of Bob Holdeman, who was a friend of ours. And just below that is Runkle approves condom machine installation. And Bob and I laugh about our headlines. But yeah, I think the wellness program was probably the most innovative that was happening during that time.
Well said. Thank you so much. Tim, how about you? Activities or involvements, historical events, all those things that happened during your time, any that are particularly memorable, and could you share why they were memorable?
So I'll share 2, maybe 3, and they all have to do with students. I mentioned this, but we were one of the first community colleges in the state to formally establish experiences overseas for our students. Okay, we looked at the notion, and I've always believed we can't serve our region without serving the world, and we are members of a global community. Unfortunately, community colleges still kind of had this, I suppose, belief that this isn't something we do. And we had a number of faculty members have small trips taking students abroad for very specific purposes. Robbie mentioned she had a program that she ran. We had people who were going to Germany, to the Soviet Union at that point. But we said something different. What would happen if we provided resources? Because the other thing we recognize is 75% of our students work. And so they don't have excess capacity necessarily to do this. So we started a scholarship on my 10th anniversary. I talked with my wife about this, and it's grown with other investors from the region. And I can't remember how many people we've sent abroad now, but it's in the hundreds. I think is it up in 500 region? 700. Okay, that's Jim Bensley out there who runs the program. And we knew it was successful when, after one of the first trips, the nursing students and the aviation students went to South Africa. And we had a luncheon. I was out of town in Lansing, probably asking for money or doing something. And Nancy went, and she sat with a couple of nursing students who had, as part of their adventure, went to a clinic out in the outside parts of South Africa. And they saw things like neonatal services, basically a box with a light bulb in it to keep preemies warm, and other things where people just had to adapt with what they had, the assets, the resources, the skills. And one of the young women looked at my wife and said, "I will never again complain about what our medical hospitals don't have to provide after seeing this, because we're so far ahead." So it did what we wanted. We wanted people to experience something beyond here, but to be able to bring it back and have it part of their life journey. One more student program that I'm very happy, we formalized experiential education throughout the curriculum. Okay, so there's not this divide of, well, technical, you're going to have these experience, you're on a pre-4-year track over here, or a pre-work track. Again, it's premised in the notion that a large number of people want to do things in order to learn from it, as opposed to being told, well, you got to learn this, and then you can go out and try it. And we learned that as a state. Those of us who are my age remember when you took teacher education programming in a 4-year institution, you didn't do your teaching in the field until you were getting ready to graduate. And there were a whole lot of people who said, well, I went through elementary education, and guess what? I don't want to spend my life with a bunch of elementary school students. So they moved that up early and said, you need the experience as part of the learning process. And that has grown as Nick came in, that's been expanded. But the fact that that was formalized recognizes how people want to learn, epitomizes that this institution continues to be able to change and transform, recognizing what they're learning about how people think.
Yeah, that global perspective and, the early experiential learning, such a key component of NMC. Chris, how about you? Let's talk about activities or involvements or historical events during your time at NMC that were memorable, and if you could share why.
Well, I know that when I first went to NMC in 81 through 83, I really didn't pay attention to the greater part of the campus. I was just more concerned about getting done, going on to Ferris and then Grand Valley to get my bachelor's and master's in accounting. But in the mid 2005, was pretty excited because my oldest son took anatomy at advanced placement through Central, and then he tested and received 11 credits towards anatomy at NMC, and that led to him starting at NMC and going on to eventually becoming a doctor. So, and having two parents that are CPAs, we tend to be pretty frugal. We were happy that our three children decided to choose NMC to start because it kept them home for 2 years. They got to work their summertime jobs, and it just made them a little bit more, I think, appreciative and disciplined when they went on to do their advanced degrees. But some of the really, I think, great experiences I had, and I think are the most memorable, occurred while I was on the board. I had when you serve as chair of the board, it's a 3-year term. My first year, 2019, somebody decided to retire, and I ended up having to oversee the search and selection of our current president, President Nisley. And I had the distinction of writing his first contract, and that was pretty interesting. Then the second year, 2020, a little medical thing happened, COVID, and got to experience how nimble our college was at being able to pivot from the traditional in-person class model to totally remote. And I would say the administration and the faculty pivoted rapidly. Over a couple of weeks, they had the program dialed in. And that helped NMC survive and thrive through a bad thing. And then in 2021, I also had the distinction of being the chair of the executive committee of the Michigan Community College Association, and oversaw the selection and hiring and writing the first contract for our president, Brandy Johnson, for that. So I mean, those were memorable, and I only had 4 years of experience on the board. I think I was voluntold by one of the other senior board members that, gee, you're going to be nominated for chair, and there's no playbook for functioning as a chair, but I will say that the systems that were in place on the orientation for board members, all these systems that, policies that we had in place, all worked really well to help me in my process. Tim mentioned experiential learning. If I pick two things that I'm proud of, is that the efforts the college has under experiential learning and embedding that in all the curriculum and the College for Kids program. I think that if you want to expose our youngest to the greatness of NMC, have them participate. And my grandchildren have done that. So I'm looking at 3 generations participating in the great experiences of NMC. And probably if I want to say something I'm extremely proud of was the eventual renaming of West Hall to the Timothy J. Nelson Innovation Center. That was in recognition of the almost 2 decades of service that Tim did to the college and innovation itself. And I think it was kind of appropriate that you started out as an advisor at West Hall, and then eventually he has his name on a building. So I think it was a privilege to be part of that process, and like I said, and all the great things, that Frick was started, the strategic planning that was done. Again, there were some major things done that, we were running great, but then COVID happened, and we really had to re-examine, what was our plan for the college, and it was strategic, and then, what are we going to do in terms of our course delivery post. So again, to me, the experience has been nothing but positive, and they've been, I say, impactful on the community as a whole, because we're training, as you said, a talent generator. We're training the workforce of the future, and it doesn't start in your third and fourth years. It starts in your first year at NMC. So,
Wonderfully said. We're moving on to a question, and as I'm hearing from the panelists, and you all know the biographies, and you know the longevity that we have on the stage here of service to NMC. I think of creativity, I think of innovation, I think of knowledge, I think of risk-taking and yet strategy, all of those things that are sort of combined. And I think any of you could have gone anywhere, really, anywhere. So I want to ask a question starting with you, Roberta. Why did you choose to come to NMC?
That's a good question, and I hadn't really thought about it that way. As I mentioned earlier, I started teaching adjunct while I was full-time with the intermediate school district at the tech center, but with their computer data processing at the time. And as I started teaching adjunct, one, I liked it. I liked the students. I felt very much at home with this audience because I am a proud graduate of a community college. Happened to be called Port Huron Junior College at the time, now St. Clair County Community College. And in terms of the going anywhere else, I love Traverse City, and I was devoted to staying here. And so that was a natural next step, and it was a great one. And I would like to add one quick thing. What I didn't expect, but became true, is my very best friends are friends who were my colleagues at NMC.
Wonderful. Pat, how about you? Why did you choose to come to NMC?
Well, actually, I didn't choose it. Bob Warner called me and said, you should just apply and see what happens. And I am thinking, I've been home with kids and growing vegetables for 12 years. It's probably time I got back to work. And I've always been drawn to NMC and to college-age students, and it just seemed like a perfect fit, and it was.
Wonderful. But you did choose to stay, so that's another piece.
Yes.
Tim, how about you? Why did you choose NMC?
Do you really want the truth?
I'm here for the truth.
Okay.
Can we handle the truth is the question.
The first time through, as I said, I followed who became my wife, who we had both been residence hall directors at Grand Valley. She had a master's degree. By some quirk of fate, I was promoted to that position. I did not have a bachelor's degree at that point. And she wanted to come back to Traverse City, where she had worked before. So I followed her, and silly her, she married me that December and spent the first year of our married life living in a dorm. Exciting. When we left here, we went to Michigan Tech and told people we're just going to be gone for 2 years. Tim's going to go get a master's. Well, 22 years later, I came back. And that's after having worked at Michigan Tech, then worked at a private college, Olivet College. And in all those cases, I always had this view that education had to transform. It had to continue to transform. It wasn't a one and done thing. And that those transformations were going to be easier to do at a smaller institution than a larger institution. So I came home one day from Olivet, and Nancy said, there's a job at NMC doing what you're doing now, you need to apply. And having been married for 50 years, I got that way because I pay attention when she tells me to do something. So I came up, interviewed, was hired as the CFO, started work, I think, in February or March, and in June, then President Ilse Burke said, I'm retiring. And I said, oh, crap. Because we had just bought a house for more than I thought we'd ever buy a house. And at that age, I thought, I'm going to work someplace that I like the people, I like the culture. And I was fortunate that I was hired as president. So the bigger question for you is not why I came, it's why I stayed. because when I was working, and I don't know what it is now, Nick, the average tenure for a community college president was someplace between 5 years and maybe 7. Why I stayed was I believe there's value to continuity in leadership. Not that my leadership was the same at the end as it was when at the beginning. I learned, I transitioned through various phases, as did the college. But it's a great community. It's a college that's committed to what it's doing. It is strategic and long-term oriented, and those are all things that appealed to me. And so we saw, we came, and we stayed.
Love it. Chris, how about you? Why did you come to NMC? And as Tim and Pat and Roberta have all said, why did you stay at NMC?
Well, the first part, I can say that now NMC is a family tradition, but it wasn't always that way. I have 7 siblings. 6 of them, plus myself, went to NMC and got our associate's degree. But it started with my brother Dean, who was waiting to enroll in Ferris in the construction program, got delayed, decided he was going to go to NMC and switch to accounting, and I can blink and 41 years later I'm still a practicing CPA and he's a CPA. So Dean set the tradition, and when I was a junior in high school, Dean was in his 2nd year, Chuck was in his 1st year in accounting. Sharon, my older sister, was thinking about going there, and it just started this process that NMC was here. You could stay home, work your summer jobs. There's a pattern that repeats here with my children doing the same thing. But it gave us the opportunity to get that first taste of a higher education, and it resulted in 5 bachelor's degrees, 2 masters, and 1 doctor, just in my immediate family. It transitioned to kind of being the option or best option for our children. So the 3 attended. So did my daughter-in-law, and my son's a doctor. So if there's anybody out there that argues that NMC will inhibit your ability to move on and do something in life, I've got 2 doctors in my family and other higher credentialed individuals that started at little old NMC. But NMC can be that perfect fit. And it's also very, like I said, having 2 CPAs as your parents, we tend to be the frugal part that said, you might want to consider NMC, because if you're going to go away to a 4-year, you got to come up with the money. So. And then why I guess stayed or got involved was when I came back, I started looking at organizations in the community that I could help serve with. I looked at NMC, got on the advisory committee, and then when a board vacancy opened up, I applied, and out of the 10 individuals, I was selected. And then it led to 2 elections, and then a recent decision that I had to come off because of a business transaction where, being a CPA, we have ethics, and it can't be, an owner of a firm that is doing the audit of the college. There's a little bit of a lack of independence that came into play, but that transitioned me off, and now I'm into the role of helping my grandchildren decide on where they're going to go to college, and I have a soon-to-be 16-year-old granddaughter that is seriously considering NMC, and we hope that that continues. And like I said, they've all done college for kids, so NMC is their college. When we ask the younger kids, like, where are you going to go to college? Well, I'm going to go to NMC. And it's NMC like mom and dad, and NMC like, Papa. So I guess it's now a family tradition.
Love that. I love that. We have time for one more question, and I want to talk for a moment about our new video that you all just saw. Incredible job. Let's give a round of applause again for that video. 75 years. And as you look to the future of community colleges, and NMC in particular, having watched that video, Roberta, what are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, I applaud the video as well. And I'm not sure that my thoughts react as much to the video as to the idea that responsiveness is what the college has always been. And so after leaving NMC, I went to Ferris for 20 years. And so I continue to think higher education topics all the time. And I think it's a very challenging time, and I'm grateful to be retired in this time. But I still pay attention. And I think that NMC has a unique opportunity, because it is the community's college, to be a convening space. And I've been mulling around what that could look like, and I don't have the right names. And it doesn't include, Stephen, sorry, returning the government requirement for graduation. But it does include preparation of our students for responsible citizenship. Integral to that, obviously, is the vital importance of information literacy, understanding what is, what isn't, what can be, and appreciation for differences. And I do think that the college is uniquely positioned to be a forum for that kind of conversation. The other place in the Water Studies Institute makes this even more viable, I think. I'm concerned, as I know most of you probably are, about our environment and the preservation thereof. And I think that this college is well positioned also to continue to be a leader in advocacy and information concerning the environment and its protection and its enhancement. And the final thing is, I tend to use AI quite a bit now, and it can be very useful. I don't think any of us have any idea how that will change what we need in the curriculum, but I know that we're pretty confident that it must change what we have in the curriculum. And I think that many of our traditional courses, and I won't name them, but many of our traditional courses will be somewhat irrelevant in the next era. And so how we address and embrace and prepare people for those changes, I think, is the next challenge for Nick and the crew.
Yes, well said. Pat, how about you, after watching the new video and to look at the future of community colleges, NMC in particular, what are your thoughts about the future?
I think that we need to be resilient. There are so many things in the health field, like who knows what cyclopsoriasis is. I mean, there's things popping up, Lyme disease now because of climate change. There's more ticks, and there's more disease, more disease from the ticks. And the other thing I guess I would like to say is that I hope people continue to have fun. I have visions seeing Jim Bensley out there. I have a vision and a picture of him running through the gym in a toga and and a torch, one of the Olympic years, and for one of our programs. And we had fun back then, and I hope that the next generation continues to have fun and stay resilient. And I'm just honored that I was able to be just a small clip in the history of NMC.
Wonderful. Tim, how about you? Looking to the future of community colleges and NMC in particular, what are your thoughts?
Well, first I'll agree with everything both Roberta and Pat have said, so I won't repeat that. I think critical to us at this time is we will need to have conversations about what's the role of the human being in what we do. And not go all in to say, well, it's all AI, or it's all online, or it's all in this. What are the values we're really trying to put there? I used to say, when we were having our conversations with the local newspaper, we're both in the business of creating an enlightened citizenry. Well, what does that mean when the country itself is in a position of change? And so resilience, agility, the willingness to let go of some things that are the past, that are near and dear to us, that defined who we were, may not define who the next generation is and what they need to be. So how do we learn to do that? What's our responsibility as people in education, in our community, to constantly look at the future, to understand there are no silver bullets, We need to be able to take risks. We need to be able to have investments. And that's been characteristic of this college since its very beginning. I mean, I still have one of those little founders circle things that people got when they donated $100 in 1951. And believe me, $100 was a lot of money back then. Okay? I think my dad made $3,500 a year at that point with a college degree. So connecting with our community, expanding our community, understanding that we're not geographically bounded, we're part of a larger human community, and how do we make those connections? I'm a firm believer in your language. I've said the college has a unique ability to be a neutral convener for critically important conversations, where we're not out there selling a position, we're out there helping people to have legitimate, thoughtful conversations to come to better solutions, whether it's about water, whether it's about employment, whether it's about housing, whether it's about issues of diversity. But we have a special role that no one else in this community can play, but we can't play it alone.
Yeah. Well said. Chris, last question, last answer. What do you think about the future?
Well, I think the college still has to try to remain relevant to our students, our community, and to our business partners out there. In other words, I grew up in the traditional model of butts in the seat. You went to the classroom 4 days a week for a 1 hour, 2 hour session, and that's how you learned. The students today are demanding some combination of hybrid, in-person, online, flexibility in how they take their things. But I'm also a business owner, and we have the same reflection with our employees. We have one person that works 100% remote, maybe pops in once a month. We have some that take 1 or 2 days off during the week. So the workforce is demanding that. And our students are going to see that and they're going to model that. I also caution with the use of AI. We have a research program, and I've done research for 41 years as a CPA. Think of ChatGPT on steroids. The subscription is $20,000 a year. We have our younger employees trying to do their research. They don't even know the questions to ask or frame to get the program to give them an answer. So AI can never be the total substitute for an answer or the human element of part of this. That most of my work is personal service in front of people. You can't, if that were the case, you'd have tax firms that are kiosks like McDonald's. You'd walk in, put your numbers in, you get a tax product back. There's more to that process. So how the college helps embed that in the curriculum and gives the students the skills to differentiate when, gee, I can get a base Reader's Digest version by doing some type of research AI model, but I still have to use some personal judgment here. And you can't substitute it for your own critical thinking too. So I always thought that you could come out of college, we can train people how to finish up processes, but we can't teach common sense and we can't teach critical thinking. They have to kind of evolve it on their own. So the college, to be relevant and to be a choice, and maybe a first choice, is we have to offer our students and provide the training and mechanisms for our community partners to where they look at NMC and say, I can get that here, which is why they'll come.
It's a wonderful place to end, and I want to say thank you so much to our panelists today, and thank you to NMC for hosting this amazing History Day. There's so much more to come. Let's give a round of applause for our panelists.
I would like to now invite longtime NMC librarian and archivist Ann Swaney and retired business and communication instructor Marilyn Jaquish to join me on the stage. NMC began a time capsule tradition at its 25th anniversary in 1976. As you see there on the table before you, that copper time capsule was handcrafted by a local coppersmith at the behest of Les Biederman, one of our founders. We've then renewed it for the 50th in 2001 and plan to do so again for the centennial, something we want you to contribute to. More on that in a few minutes. Right now, let's take a trip back to 2001. Ann and Marilyn, would you please do the honors?
I just want to say how honored I am to be here today. It's been a real privilege to discover the history of the college all the way back.
Ditto. Now comes the fun part. So what we're going to do is just show you some of the things that we think are really fun that have been resting here for 25 years. So the first one is celebrating, I'm not sure that you can, oh yeah, you can see it, good. It's celebrating 50 years of quality education. This was a souvenir edition for our journalism students back in 2001, August. And a brochure we have that was the whole calendar for today, just like today. But actually it went through the whole year at that point. We also have the Dennos, I think it's their 10th anniversary. So you can see that that was exactly 25 years ago, and they had a marvelous, just ancient Egypt exhibition. So it was really amazing. This is probably something that many of you may remember. This was the catalog. And you always had to wait until the catalog came out till you see when your classes were and what time and so forth. And now, guess what? It's all online. So that's another goodie. And actually the last one, but a very, very special one, is a video of, and it's all, I can't really show them to you, and I don't think you're seeing them up there either, of photos all around the campus that a very special person named Jill Hines made back 25 years ago, and it's all now on this strange piece of work that we're going to have to try and turn into something that we can all see and visit with. So I think that's everything that we want to make, except that.
Finally.
Oh yeah, here we are. We gathered all of these envelopes and people's thoughts in it back in 2001, and we're now going to hand this over to Stephen, and he has some that he has opened and chosen to share with us. So that's it for us.
Thank you, Ann and Marilyn. I would like to share some excerpts from a few of the letters in the capsule. Here are some successful predictions. One student wrote, "I predict that NMC will get a left-hand turn light into the main entrance." One retired vice president wrote, "NMC will have achieved international recognition for its innovative partnership-based approaches in support of research and education on fresh water and the Great Lakes." One retired nursing faculty wrote, "The Dennos Museum will continue to draw visitors to the wonders of history, culture, and future as visitors and students come nationally and internationally to learn. There were some also interesting predictions. One from a current staff member. NMC will provide laptops for all students and employees, only they will be the size of a Palm Pilot and they will always be with you. And on campus parking, one from a former residence life supervisor. I predict that parking will not be an issue because gas prices will be so high, students will not be able to afford cars and they will all want to live on campus. And one prediction from our popular culture scholar that was a bit optimistic. Our men's basketball team will make the NCAA Final Four, but lose to Duke in the final game by 1 point. Finally, I would like to share a portion of the letter from our then college president, Tim Nelson, who reflected on the college's response to the 9/11 tragedy that occurred just 1 week before in New York. Our college immediately set about trying to make a difference. We collected 80 units of blood on Thursday, began a ribbon campaign to show our support on Wednesday, held an all-campus meeting to share ways to cope with tragedy and help our students, held a non-denominational program on Friday and a candlelight vigil on Friday evening. I am proud to tell you that our college community values diversity of thought and being, and can distinguish between those who committed these terrible acts and others who share a religion or geographic heritage. I am confident we will do the right things as a community. I sincerely hope the values that underlie our response to these events will be intact and alive in the future. I feel fortunate to have shared these events with this group of people. Speaking as someone who's been here for 41 years, I can say that hope has always been realized at NMC. I want to thank you all for coming to our event and remind you that our next event is already underway, the History Walk of this campus. You received maps of the walk when you arrived, and if you didn't, they are out there on the tables for you to pick up. And the first station is just outside the auditorium by the cases displaying our 75th anniversary exhibit, which will include the time capsule as soon as we put it there. At each station, there will be cards for all of you to fill out to recount either your most memorable NMC experience or tell us what NMC will look like in 2051. We will use these cards for the NMC Centennial Time Capsule. And remember that tonight our concert and jazz bands will perform here starting at 7 p.m. The concerts, like the History Walk, are free and open to everyone. Enjoy exploring History Day. Enjoy your day. Thank you.